Well, all right, good evening all. Welcome to the Monday, September 27th, regular meeting of the Town of Easton Planning and Zoning Board. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you can follow the link on the agenda, which is on the town's website, or you can download at zoom.us. While conducting meetings remotely, we will endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocol. While board members and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendee, meaning they are muted with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raised hand function on Zoom or make a request with the Q&A function. If you are joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and second, so that it'll be clear to the audience and minute takers who made the motion. All votes will be by roll call. So to ensure we have a quorum, I will do a voice roll call. Strange here.
Valcarrick here.
Anderson here.
So we have a new record for the fastest raised hand, and it's from Ann Grant, and it says, will you let us know when we can raise our hands for a specific item to comment on? Well, Ann, you've already raised your hand, so you know how to do that. And what we'll do at each, I'm not sure what item you're here for, but at each item, basically, we will hear a presentation from the applicant, if present, then a report from our Director of Planning, then board members will ask questions or make comments, and then we will go out to the public. So at that point, you can raise your hand and we'll ask if there's any public comment at that point. All right, and you are welcome. So with that being said, I quickly, we're doing this right. I have to recuse myself at the end for 8 Lincoln. So I just wanted to, although really isn't direct, well, it's related to this board in that we're from Easton, and I thought it would be remiss if we didn't mention the passing of Avery Lee Williams over the weekend. His funeral was on Sunday. I think he passed maybe on Friday. And for those of you who knew him or have heard of him, he was very generous, both financially and time-wise in Easton. Many of the new residents in town may recognize his name from helping, there's a plaque calling him out at the gardens at Quanticate, and also the clock downtown across from the Farmer's Daughter was donated by Lee. And those really don't even scratch the surface of the work he did through the years. And Amas, I know he was a personal friend of yours, and Stephanie and I were very lucky to have known Lee and worked with him for many years. And he was a great guy, and I just, on behalf of the board and behalf of citizens of Easton, I want to thank, I thanked his wife yesterday, Betty. Thank you for letting him, all the things he did for Easton. And I thought his friend, the pastor at the service, had come up from Florida and said Lee was a man of means who could have lived anywhere on earth, and he chose to always stay in Easton, and that really summed up Lee. So anyways, thanks for indulging me. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our good friend. He will be forever missed and forever in our hearts. So anyways, as we move on, first thing we have Goodspeed Estates. I know we're going, if I'm correct, Stephanie, we're going to discuss the landscaping plan, and we're not going to discuss the architectural review for Lot 5 because they're going to be submitting something else, I guess, correct?
That is correct, but the first item on the agenda are the minutes. If
Oh, I went right by them, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Sure. Peter, did you read them?
I did.
Oh, didn't mean to call you out.
Yeah, the only change I would recommend is that we talked about how the loading area and the refrigeration units would be on the rear of the processing building. So that's the west side.
Okay. For the farm.
Right.
Okay.
Good catch, Peter. Anybody else have any revisions or corrections? Anybody care to make a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes, Stetson.
Shane second.
Oh, that was a second, I think, right? It kind of cut out.
Yeah.
Peter did, okay. We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor? Strange eye.
Shane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Sarah guy.
Anderson, I.
We have 44 participants. Do we have something big tonight that I didn't know about? Wow, I would have dressed better. Okay, so Goodspeed Estates. So my summary was accurate, right, Stephanie? I believe.
Yes,
We're
yes,
just going
it
to
is.
discuss the landscaping plan.
Yep, and I can bring that up.
And I know this is, so, I want to read, I thought this would be helpful because this was 4 years ago, 4.5, yeah, over 4 years ago that this was passed. So several of our members weren't on the board at the time, and we discussed this a few times. I know we discussed this maybe 6 months ago or so. And I printed up earlier today, I printed up the decision and just wanted to call out the things that are pertinent to the landscaping. The landscape, it's number 8, stone wall to be constructed at the entrance, and any repairs or restoration of the existing stone wall shall emulate and preserve the traditional New England dry field stone wall. This is a perpetual condition. At no time are cut stones or mortar to be used in the construction or repair of the stone walls. The existing stone wall on the north side of the proposed road shall remain and will be repaired as needed. A new stone wall, similar in construction and design to the existing walls, shall be constructed at the portion of the proposed road abutting Center Street and for at least the first 200 feet along the southern side of the proposed road. This is a perpetual condition. Excuse me, this is a perpetual condition. Talk about cut stones again. Number 9, the applicant shall replace any beech trees within the cluster of beech trees at the east side of the cul-de-sac that may be impacted during construction activities. The replacement shall be a 1-to-1 ratio with trees having a minimum 3-inch diameter at breast height to be planted in or near the westerly end of the right-of-way. The 3 large trees on the southern side of the proposed entrance road shall be preserved as called out in the plans. Number 10, landscaping plans for the entrance and outlet of the subdivision, as well as the border of all roads, shall be submitted to the board for approval prior to start of work. And then, yeah, so that's, okay, so that is the extent of landscaping as called out in the decision. And you're gonna share your screen?
I am, do you want to, do you want to ask if there's anyone from the?
Oh, is there anyone, it would probably, who would be Mike, as a hand raised, let's see, would it be Mike O'Shaughnessy? Yeah, Mike O'Shaughnessy, so you wanna let him in? Oh,
Okay, now.
please.
Yes, yeah. Okay, and let me get to the. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
I can.
And this is the landscape plan. I will enlarge it. Okay.
Mr. O'Shaughnessy, are you with us?
I am.
All right,
Really?
welcome. Oh, and look, we have a video too.
Yeah, right, huh?
Thank goodness. If a lawyer shows up to a meeting without a tie, does he bill out for the same rate?
No, it's half price.
Bob, do you agree with that?
I'm unmuting. I don't have a tie on. So,
But you're not getting paid for this portion of the program either. Yeah,
bingo. So I concur.
that's great. All right, Mr. O'Shaughnessy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, again, as you had mentioned, there was a requirement of a landscaping plan. This was submitted, I think, some time ago, but it just got refiled recently. Basically, what it shows is what they're proposing at the entranceway on the top of the sheet. You can see that they're proposing some small plantings and a fence. In the middle of the page, you can see the entrance character elevation. It's a combination of fence and stone wall and some plantings. It kind of mirrors everything on both sides of the entranceway, and the rest will be lawn. There's a plant schedule called up on the left-hand side, as you can see. On the northern side of the roadway, it makes reference to note 1. Yeah, right there. It talks about if you could slide it back the other way, Stephanie, if you can.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the notes are probably more important than the sketches.
yeah.
Yeah, on the northerly border, they're proposing to remove some non-natural species and replace them with shrubs. I can't even say that verb. Viburnum will be planted 8 foot on center spacing, staggered fashion to simulate the naturalistic fields of the border planting. Along the note 2 refers to the stone wall that is the 200 feet along the entranceway. This stone wall is to be installed in front of lot 1, 2, and a portion of lot 3. And from memory, I don't believe it extends all the way down. It's going to be installed on there's a sidewalk on that side of the road. It's going to be installed on where the lot meets the sidewalk. So in other words, you'd have a stone wall, then you can have a sidewalk, a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk. Note 3, again, this is talking to, there's several points along here. I think where it's near the abutter's property, they're talking about using this 5 foot overall fence in certain sections. I think they're trying to blend it in what's going on with the north side of the road. The details are kind of poor, but there's a couple locations where that's being proposed. I'm sorry, there's one location where that's being proposed. We know about the beech trees. They were cut down as a condition. I don't see them reflected where they're going on this sketch, but it is referred to in a note. And that is the long and short of what I have to say on the landscaping plan. I'd be interested to hear what the board members have to say, and if I need to make any revisions to this plan.
So my question is, I think you just said that but I just want to call it out with a little more detail. The location of the stone wall, is there going to be on an easement? Someone recently said, you just said it sounded like it's going to be on the house side of the sidewalk.
Yeah. There was an easement recently prepared, and I think it was recently recorded too, Stephanie. I think
Yes.
Paul Prue may have sent you a copy of it.
Yes.
So what that easement did, it reserved the right to the developer to enter onto lot 1, 2, or 3 and install the stone wall. I'm guessing that's probably one of the last features of this development that'll be done. You don't want to put up the wall and have it ruined by equipment and all that stuff. So I think you folks had asked for an easement, and we recorded same. And it's part of the homeowners association, and they have the right to go in and maintain that wall.
Right.
And Stephanie, is the stone wall in the landscaping covered in the road cost estimate?
It was not covered in the road cost estimate.
So what do we do? As Mr. O'Shaughnessy said, they're thinking they'll do this towards the end, which sounds, I've got money that says someone's before us whenever and says, you know what, the homeowners have their lawns in and they don't want these stone walls. They don't know about them. So how do we make sure these stone walls get done?
So the board, there are a couple things, and this is I'm illuminating a bit here. The board could ask that the applicant put up a bond specifically for the stone wall. The other is that we could hold the last two certificates of compliance. But that, again, that holds up property owners, but it would be incumbent upon the developer to get the stone wall finished. And if the last houses were the ones, of course, the stone wall runs along the affordable unit, which is the first one, and that has to be completed before the last two. I think it's after the 6th. This is a 7, so I think it's the 5th. I think there are 2
Right.
lots before that has to be built, and even a building permit issued for the last lots. The board is holding, I mean, there have been no funds released to date on the bond that is being held, and we could adjust that and go back. I'd have to verify that with town council. If we could add the cost of the stone walls into the road cost estimate. And then you could hold back, again, because we haven't released anything, an amount sufficient to cover the remaining road work as well as the stone wall.
Right, so okay, I'll let you handle that. I mean, I think legally we need to handle it somehow.
Yes.
Even if we just add it, if I am understanding you correctly, we haven't released anything. So there should be a surplus right now in the road cost estimate, in theory anyways.
Yes.
So we could, instead of asking them for a second, an additional bond, if we could just create a new line item for the landscaping and the stone walls, right? That might, that suffices. And so board members, I just point out so really the only change here is the original decision, the original agreement that came with the developer was along Route 138. That portion would be all stone wall, and what they're looking to do is those 2 versions of those 2 corners, if you will, of stone wall. Excuse me, and then the fences. So I think that's probably the biggest. And I think that's kind of where we left off last time. So just your thoughts on that and on the plan in general, I guess, if anybody has it.
Greg, can you just repeat that again? Because I was trying to remember myself. I thought.
So Stephanie, can you
saw...
can you pull down just the detail up front, the entrance?
Yep.
Of course. So
and I'm trying to zoom in without overcompensating here.
Yeah, so that's fine. So you see right there. So this is up, obviously Center Street's running north to south on this plan. Right. So I'll read it just so you can hear it. So in the decision, it says, let me find it. Stone wall. Okay, stone wall, blah, blah, at the portion of the proposed road abutting Center Street. So basically, this entire, right where Stephanie has that hand icon. So what was agreed to originally, what was in the decision was that would be all stone wall rather. The thought was, to tie it in. There's a lot of stone walls in that area. What they're looking to do, and it doesn't really appear to be a cost savings thing. They almost have the same amount of stone wall. They've put it, 2 right angle stone walls and they've added fences to it.
So these are the stone walls where the hand is, and then right here, these verticals, these rectangles are the fencing. See that here.
I was gonna say, I feel like I was trying to remember didn't we see like a version of this like years ago maybe, and there was some issue with the entrance and the way it was drawn, or like the fence or something like that.
Yeah, well, a plan came in that wasn't really a landscaping plan, and it just didn't call anything out. And the purpose of plans is to communicate, construction details or an agreement or something. And so that was done, I believe, by the home designer. And it didn't really, they didn't call out any, plants or anything. Just had a bunch of circles.
And then at one point, Greg, you'll remember that the project proponent was suggesting, I think, replacing the stone walls or maybe adding the horse fencing. And they did come in with a concept plan at that time, but it was really a very rough concept plan. And you may also be thinking of that, Deb.
Oh, yes, that actually does remind me. So does this plan have fencing? Because I feel like I remember we had a discussion about who's going to maintain the fence, or then is it going to be a PVC fence? And doesn't it look like there's a little fence on the
There's a detail, maybe Stephanie can pan over it. The same plan, there is an elevation showing the fence and the stone wall.
There is a front view of the entrance.
Yeah, right there.
Right, but it is for the front entrance.
It doesn't call out materials, but.
Right.
It says plastic fence. Oh, no, rustic.
No, rustic fence.
It's rustic. And somehow I don't think plastic can or should be construed as rustic.
And don't forget, Deb, in the decision, there's also the required, like any flexible development, to have a homeowners association, which would have a responsibility for this, all the common space landscaping, as well as the care of the road.
And
What is rustic?
What is rustic? Not contemporary. It's, it's country, it's homey. It's,
I would say it's a wood fence. No
more
wood
of a,
fence.
I'm going to use an architectural term, and hopefully the architects or designers on the board will forgive me, but wouldn't it be more vernacular than it would be high style? And I know we're talking about a fence and not buildings, but rustic is generally more useful than it is.
I think it's something you'd be proud to tie your horse to.
That's the reference to a horse.
That's always, that's how I measure it.
Is there any signage for this development at all? I don't see anything.
I don't know. It's not shown on here. I think, and again, that draft of concept with the horse fencing showed some kind of sign.
Way back when, I think there was a proposal for the entranceway to have a block wall. And I think, I could be wrong, that block wall may have had good speed lane in the name of it there. I think that was it, but I don't think it was ever formally proposed to you folks.
Yeah, there was a conversation about along the road, what was going to happen on that
Right.
North side of the road.
Right.
What about the beech trees? So there are trees on this landscaping plan that might represent beech trees, but they're not called out as beech trees.
So if you recall, down by there was a group of the beech trees. If you're looking where you see the two guys that are colored in black with the balloon, there was approximately that location. There was 3 or 4 beech trees there. There was a cluster of them that the prior conservation agent wanted preserved. So they need to be replanted elsewhere on the site. They're not shown on this plan. I don't know where they're proposing to install them right now. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
If I'm not mistaken, Stephanie, were you with me when we did a meeting out there?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. Yeah.
It was like 2 years ago.
My recollection clearly was that the planning board also wanted to see those preserved, if at all possible.
Right.
But if they weren't, that planting of similar tree material be made in that area. And in fact, the beech trees are gone now.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, at that meeting, and I know I stepped back, I think Andrea, the former conservation agent, and yourself were maybe a little more involved, but if I recall, they were kind of going to go in the area of where these people are holding the balloon.
Yes.
So the
yes.
near where the Nasarian property, Nasasian property butts.
Correct.
So we can maybe add that into this drawing. We can just draw it on.
May I bring a question on my notes that I review? I participated in one meeting.
Yeah.
And on that meeting, the abutter, and I think Western Associations participated. And it was said on the meeting that the developer will reach and discuss with them what will be on that area and how to do landscape. And on this plan, I don't see anything there. And the question is, did the developer reach to the abutters, all of them on the north side, in which there is nothing here on this plan?
I know they did. In fact, yesterday, I think you and I were talking to Henry, and he had recently talked to them. But we can circle back and ask him. But the best, I mean, it's been so long. But the best of my recollection is we were all in agreement that, like you said, right, sort of where the shade people are holding the balloon is where the beech trees were.
Can I just make one other comment,
Of course.
possibly? Can we go back to the entrance where Center Street is? Like the little plan diagram, right there. So I haven't turned in and out of that onto the new street that much as of yet. But I feel like it could be a little bit of a tricky, like, wait, where is the entrance? And I'm just wondering, is the expanse between the two L's of the stone not at all going to be misconstrued as possibly like an opening? Do you know what I'm saying? Like if you're wondering where you turn in.
Greg,
like,
could I respond to that? I have driven in there several times coming from both directions, and it really is, I have not experienced confusion. And I'm definitely one of those people, if there's any obscureness about an entrance, that I will hesitate and pause, but I did not have trouble navigating it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the,
I mean, that's a good,
breaking up that, I think originally, yes, maybe it was supposed to just be a continuous wall. I don't have an issue with the way it's currently laid out aesthetically. I just was wanting to, understand if that helped or hindered the understanding of the entry, but I know it's not there yet.
Because they don't exist today. So that
Right.
visual break doesn't exist today.
Why the interruption on the this is a question, why the interruption on the stone wall? If the agreement was there should be a stone wall in the front, and this is the big difference, why we interrupting that? Why it's just called?
Well, I think the purpose is if you look on the of that island there, you have that breakout, if you will, and that was intended for parking for people with kids. So if they were almost as a bus stop, so they could park up there and their kids could walk through those two islands and get on the bus. I think that was the thought behind it.
You're right, Nicholas. Well, anyways, I mean, that's what they decided on. So, we're making sure that they have a plan that sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think it's aesthetics at this point. I mean, if the board wants to say, no, you have to go with what there was originally, but we probably shouldn't get stuck on this too much. I mean, I don't think they're trying to skimp on costs. I mean, they're adding fencing. It seems to, so, but if you guys want to go back to what we originally decided, that's fine too. Let's try to decide. It's like the fifth time.
No, this looks good.
Sorry, Peter?
I think it looks good.
Well, where I come from, when we think something looks good, I often make a motion.
Yeah. Do we need to condition with the beech trees or anything, or you want to just go straight ahead? So there were the beech trees, and were there any other?
The easement. Do you have the easement info, Stephanie? Sorry, Peter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the easement was on the plan. I was looking at it.
Is it okay? Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, it was a 10-foot easement on the on the south side. So, all right, motion to approve the revised landscaping plans for Goodspeed Estates. And we'll have a condition that the applicant continue to work with the town to find a suitable location for the replacement beech trees.
That's in second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, Strange eye.
Shane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Anderson, I.
Oh, Sarah, guy.
Very good. Thank you all. Mr. O'Shaughnessy, thank you.
We'll see you in a couple weeks, hopefully.
Can't wait.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, next up, we have a preliminary subdivision plan for 31 Quanticate Avenue. And I imagine maybe this is why we have such a crowd. So
I'm guessing.
what we'll do for folks in the audience that aren't used to coming to our meetings, kind of repeating myself, but the applicant will give a presentation. Then Ms. Danielson, our Director of Planning, will make any points related to her report. Then the board members will comment or ask questions, and then we will open it up to the public for any question. So
I know Aaron Waluka is here for that. I just promoted him. Scott, please raise your hand if I believe you're here for that as well. And there's one other individual.
Scott Faria, I see there.
Looking. Okay. Is Dana part of your crew? I see, okay, well, his hand is raised, so. Let's see, and where's Scott? I lost Scott. Hold on a second. This is a big group tonight. Okay, that should be everybody.
All right, so who is, Scott, are you taking the helm? Oh, are you, I can't hear you, but it doesn't say you're muted, but I can't hear. Anybody hear Scott? Can't hear you, but you're not muted. Is your microphone plugged in?
How about that?
There you go. I heard a little click.
Thank you for saying microphone plugged in, because I would have been here for an hour trying to figure out, because my kids and my wife left me, so I'm on my own.
And where would a man of your age be technologically without the kids? I understand that. I feel your pain.
That's the truth.
So I'm on iPhone 1,
There you go.
the flipped version.
All right, are you ready for me, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, are you going to share your screen, or how are we going to handle this? Or do you want Stephanie to share her screen? I'm sorry?
I hope you don't ask me to do that.
No, Stephanie, do you want to share your screen?
I will do that. Hold on.
Thank you.
And, oh, before I forget, if you all could just identify yourself with your address for the record, please. And that's the same for folks in the audience. If you chime in with any questions, you just need to identify yourself and give your address for the record.
Sure, Scott Faria from JK Holmgren Engineering, 1024 Pearl Street, Brockton, Mass.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. What we have before you tonight is a preliminary subdivision of a kind of a unique piece of property that's has a little bit of a history with the planning board going back, I don't know, 15 or 20 years now. It's a piece of landlocked property, existing house on Quanticate Ave that has two rights of access off of Quanticate Ave, doesn't necessarily have any frontage on Quanticate Ave. It encompasses plots 33 and 33A on your assessors maps. What we're looking to do is extend the right-of-way of Guinevere Road onto the subject property, create 2 lots that will have the legally required frontage and area. They would meet those requirements, meet the setback requirements for a new house. And we would request that the planning board waive the construction standards within that roadway extension. It would basically be a bulb on top of a bulb. Right now, the cul-de-sac on Guinevere is constructed. We would be looking for that construction to be waived on our roadway extension. We have met with the fire department on this just to make sure they didn't have any issues. And the captain's biggest concern is that the new house would be within 300 feet of the existing hydrant at the end of Guinevere Road. We've met that requirement. The other issue is just kind of their standard request that the driveway be 12 foot wide and have an 18-foot cleared width. So we've met that requirement as well. As I said, we'd be looking for waivers. If it proceeded to a definitive subdivision, we have 20 waivers requested. All of them primarily pertain to the roadway construction, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Is that all you have for now?
I think so.
Okay, Stephanie?
Okay, I think Scott should have had a chance to look at my report. Some of them are, and again, this is a preliminary subdivision plan that they're submitting. So it will, if the board votes for in a positive way, they will need to come back to the board with a definitive subdivision plan. So one of the things, the locus was not provided on the plan, which is required. Also, the deed that was submitted appears to convey the parcel of land identified as lot 51 on plan of land referenced in the deed, and which is now known as 43 Guinevere. So we don't have a deed for 31A Quanticate Avenue, and that's where the cul-de-sac is going to be located. So that would need to be provided. As Mr. Faria mentioned, they are seeking a lot of waivers, and it's primarily related to utilities and the road construction. Presumably, one of the things, they do show water coming onto the property, but they don't show other utilities. So that should be addressed, whether they're pre-existing coming from Quanticate Avenue, or if at some point they expect to tie into Guinevere Road. Let's see. The plans show the existing buildings only, meaning that one of the requirements for a preliminary plan and also a subdivision plan is that you show geographical features such as swamps, ledge, outcroppings, etc. Any walls or fences, and those really aren't shown here. And presumably some of those do exist on the site. Let's see. Information and stamp was provided for land surveyor. Again, when the fully engineered plan comes in for the subdivision, it will need an engineer stamp as well. Applicable 2-foot boards, went through the waiver. So those are primarily my comments. And let's see. Also, let's see, they've requested a waiver from drainage. And they have not shown infiltration of roof runoff, or it looks like, oh, it doesn't. I kept thinking this is the septic system, I'm assuming, and not the roof runoff infiltration.
We'll certainly add that onto the definitive plans.
Yeah. So those are my comments, and basically the board just needs to consider whether this what they're requesting complies. Oh, and one other comment, which I was just glancing through my report. I thought I had added it. So this driveway clearly services the proposed building on lot A. This driveway just seems to end nowhere. So again, the question is, where does, presumably you're trying to link this house to Guinevere Road for full roadway access as opposed to this easement. And if that's the case, then that driveway should be shown to serve the primary dwelling.
We'll make that change as well.
And those were my comments.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions or comments?
Wetlands on that lot?
No,
And
I know that's surprising.
what's the current use? Is it just like a kind of construction type yard? Or I couldn't tell what that was on.
All of the, I mean, the property where what we're calling Lot A is primarily a wooded lot.
Okay. And then B is what?
That's, yes, exactly. Lot B is Mr. DeLuca's residence right now, you know, his primary residence, with a driveway out to Quanticate.
Okay, so lot B is going to sort of stay as is, well, not stay as is, but yeah, it's not being redeveloped at this point, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing it does for the existing house and all of the outbuildings, it just gives him a safer, more reasonable address, I guess. You know, there's problems now with deliveries. The fire captain, when he met us out there, said it's really a nightmare having these long driveways stuck in the back. It's hard to tell where they are.
Yeah,
So
he has that right away, right, yeah.
Right, having an address on Guinevere would make everybody's life easier, from the delivery guy to the fire department.
And-
What condition is Guinevere Road in right now? I know that other parts of that, the overall development had some insufficient bond money or just lost security to finish the road from like a very long time ago.
I think it's in pretty good shape, actually. I was out there, I didn't notice that it was in bad shape. I think it's in good shape. The
Okay.
cul-de-sac certainly is. We were.
There might be other parts of that area that are in worse shape.
Mr. Chair, if I may add something to, in response to Peter's comments.
Sure.
That I'm not seeing it immediately on my report, but one of the considerations, I think, is that if this is approved by the board, that these lots be given a Guinevere Road address for the reasons that Scott just mentioned, and it sounds like Peter was alluding to. I mean, it makes it easier for emergency vehicles to know where they're going if they have a Guinevere address, if that's the board's vote in the future.
Okay, thank you. Peter, you could?
Yeah, I guess my final comment is that, I guess this is acceptable for like kind of a unwritten policy that we now just have, paper cul-de-sacs to provide frontage. It's been kind of happening more often, so I guess we've been comfortable with that in the past, but it seems like that is sort of where these things are going these days.
Has it really happened that often?
Yeah, the last few years, I guess, more than it ever did. Might just be
I
because.
mean, I can think of one.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
But we have one over the summer, right? Yeah, but I don't know, that's just, yeah.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
again, make a comment on that, what, in my mind, because I was thinking about this earlier, because even looking at it now as I was reviewing it, I was kind of questioning that. I think the fact that if this were approved by the board, that these properties could be given a Guinevere Road address, definitely does provide an improved safety factor to the residents. Of course, it's just one resident now, but if they develop both lots, so.
But, and not that I disagree with you, Stephanie, but why the existing structure is what X number per Quanticate, and it has a driveway, and I'm assuming it has a mailbox. So what, I don't really get and it's not all that long of a road.
Well, I think
what's the safety issue? I don't understand the fire chief's issue.
that it's landlocked, even though it does have a roadway, but it would, again, just,
but look at the
That's a good
distance of
point.
this. There's
That's a
plenty
good
of houses
point.
in Easton.
Yeah,
I mean, the
there are.
fire department doesn't know if it's landlocked. There's a driveway and there's a number.
That's right.
So
You
I
would-
mean, it's just my,
Yep.
I just
Yeah.
don't want to act like there's
Yeah.
this really unsafe situation. that we're
I think
in.
in this case, the difference is the bigger issue are the numbers, I think. If you look at the plan, starting at the bottom, it's house number 27, and then it goes to 35, our address. So I think I think just the spacing of the driveways just adds to some confusion, I think.
Okay, well, we'll just leave it at that. I guess.
If I could,
Yeah,
can you-
Identify yourself, name and address,
I'm
please.
sorry, Aaron Waluka, 31 rear Quanticate Ave, Northeastern. I just like to point out the lower lot is not 27. 27 is south of that. The lower lot on Quanticate is 31. The next one north of that is 35 and 37, a duplex. The fire department has had to come out there in the past 10 years that we've been there a couple of times, and they have not been able to find us because it is a rear address. And we battle constantly with our neighbors because Amazon, UPS, and FedEx, even though all of them now have Google Map pictures and big red arrows pointing to our house, they still deliver all of our packages to our neighbors. So it is, although you would think that it would make sense, the 31 our mailbox is next to the 31 mailbox because there's no place else to put it. So it is confusing right at Quanticate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, carrying on. Anybody?
So, would the existing driveway remain, but the proposed driveway would be extended?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Right.
And, just
Excuse me,
for,
I'm sorry, which driveway are you talking when you say existing driveway?
the one on the bottom left there.
So that's gonna stay. So isn't that making this confusing situation more confusing by changing it? Not trying to be a wise guy, but you know what I'm saying? Why is that staying if we're gonna come off of Guinevere?
It wouldn't be as confusing once again, Aaron Waluka, 31 rear.
Yeah, it's okay, you don't have to do that.
Okay. It wouldn't be as confusing because when giving an address, the address would be a Guinevere address. They wouldn't be coming in the other driveway. So for emergency services and deliveries, no one would even see that other driveway. We'd just use that for ease of access if we're heading in the other direction, and that would also limit our going down Guinevere Road, take a little bit of traffic off of there.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if he has to go to the grocery store, he and his friends might take the rear entrance to go to the grocery store, but if they're getting a delivery, and they know exactly where it is, and the safety vehicles have an address, an actual address for it.
Exactly.
And, just for clarification, Scott, which structure is the actual house?
Would you like me to chime in, Scott?
Sure.
Okay. It is the bottom right gray structure that's sort of T-shaped, correct? The one that Stephanie is highlighting right there. That's the home. The rest are garages and workshops and a barn.
Is this the site of the old foundry
Yes, this is the old Easton brass and aluminum site.
where Paul Revere hung out?
Yeah, well, we had beers with him last week.
No, I'm serious. He was somewhere around here. Maybe it was up at Belcher.
I hadn't heard that, but I'm gonna have to research it now.
Okay, board members. So that Deb, you set?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Chris or Bob or Amas, you guys have anything?
Nothing for me.
Okay. So I have a question. I know we looked at this a few years ago, and if memory serves, nothing could be done because Guinevere, there was a piece of land that straight line that the cul-de-sac didn't touch, and it was, I think, maybe owned by the original developer, or is that situation gone now? Who owns that little piece? Because it's not really called out. on the plan.
Essentially, the town does. And
Essentially, the town does.
well, because the road was accepted by the town
Yeah.
and was never contested to the town. Town council feels that that is part of the right of way.
Okay.
And that may not be, I probably have that written up in clearer terms, but
Yeah, that's right. So legally, it's no, excuse me, it's no different. So is that to say, so inside this proposed new cul-de-sac, will that be town land also?
if it's, I don't know that the town would accept an unconstructed cul-de-sac, so probably the recommendation would be that it remains private, and you'd have to have a homeowners association for the abutting lots.
Right.
And that portion would remain private, and the town would plow up to, the town doesn't plow that stub, it's not paved. They just plow the cul-de-sac if it is a public road, yeah.
At the end of Guinevere would be 2 driveways, so they'd be able to just continue plowing just as they have. And the previous plan was actually approved by the board. The approval was appealed. We won the appeal. It took, I want to say, 4 years before the judge ruled on it. And then one of the neighbors' situation had changed. Since then, we've learned that our town council made that ruling that Guinevere Road was accepted to the station of our lot line, giving us that frontage, which allowed us to come in with this plan instead of the previous one that was already approved by the board, which is very similar to what you're looking at. And the end result is very similar to what you're looking at.
Okay, so that's it from the board. People in the audience, folks in the audience, if you want to raise your hand, use the raise hand function. All right, Ann Grant, I saw her first. So Stephanie, if you want to call her up. And just a reminder, folks, that we need your name and address for the record as you begin to speak.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can.
Hi, Ann Grant, 43 Guinevere Road. Thanks for recognizing me.
Sure, welcome.
I just want to preface my comment to say that I've had very little notice of this, so I don't feel fully prepared to, cite rules or whatever it is that this board may consider while they're considering this proposal. But I'll do the best I can, so just bear with me on that. I am objecting to the creation of this proposal because it effectively creates a pass-through for this landowner from Quanticate to Guinevere. Now, what I'm hearing some board members say is that the reason to grant these waivers and allow this to be made is sort of a safety reason. Well, I want to put on the ledger to calculate that residents of Guinevere and other people who live on the Camelot Estates subdivision likely, like myself, purchased a home here because it is a true cul-de-sac with no pass-through traffic. So pass-through traffic, I would say, represents an increased, motor vehicle risk to the many pedestrians, many children who are on bikes and scooters, using Guinevere roads, Lancelot, King Arthur, all of the adjoining roads that are part of Camelot Estates where there is no pass-through to any other road. Now, it may seem insignificant because this is an individual landowner seeking these changes, but I would note for the board 2 things. One, I have a specific concern about how this property owner would use this, and I have no personal animus towards him. I've never met Mr. Waluka. But I have noticed since I've been here in the last couple months, for example, that there was a concert at the property and that people, I guess there were enough attendants that some parked on Guinevere Road. Well, the concern is if he continues to have events like that, that people are permitted to use it, that pass through as a means of ingress and egress from that property, which truly would increase the traffic on our road. And that even if this property owner doesn't use it for those purposes, creating this, permissive proposal here to allow these driveways would create it for any future owner of that property, and it could no longer be controlled. It would no longer truly be a cul-de-sac. I also want to note for the board that one of the members asked about the condition of Guinevere and the other roads in this area. These are lovely streets. These are single-family homes. It's a very nice, very quiet area. Like I said, lots of pedestrian traffic, very friendly to people who want to take their dogs for a walk, kids to play. And I'm not familiar with any area that might be in a poor condition that I think board member DeShane mentioned. So I'm not sure what that reference was to, but the cul-de-sac is in good shape, as are the adjoining roads. And what I'm concerned about is the character of Guinevere also being undermined, because this property, as I understand it, 31A Quanticate, I think, or 31R, I'm not sure, but the property that currently abuts the end of Guinevere, I understand it to be zoned residential. It appears industrial, or at least appears to be holding materials that are meant for industrial or commercial purposes. You can see large piles of pallets, you can see a bus. There's other types of commercial or industrial objects on that property. So my concern is that if we were to extend Guinevere to allow this property to join, it would be used as an ingress and egress for that type of material, which I think might not be in keeping with the current permissive use for that type of residence to have those materials. So I'm concerned that it would be used in that way and undermine the current character of this area. And I think the last point I'd like to make is that I believe that this owner bought these two lots decades after Camelot Estates created this and caused this to be a landlocked parcel. So it is not the town's creation of a financial hardship. It is a financial hardship that the owner would have assumed the risk of, that he might not get permission to do this. So I would suggest that that is not on the town, that's not on the residents of these cul-de-sac streets in this quiet neighborhood to take that on, allow this to become a pass-through. I would note that we both get the benefits and the detriments of the bargains that we make. I recently moved here because I have two small children, specifically for a quiet cul-de-sac. There are upsides to living on Quanticate, like quicker access to the amenities, so that's the benefit of his bargain. I'd suggest that maybe there are other ways that he could make his property more safe. I agree with the chairman that the distance doesn't seem different. Any kind of fire or police response would have to travel all the way through Guinevere in order to get there, and it's probably quicker to do it from Quanticate. And maybe they could just seek a different number on the house or make the signage clearer so that anybody going there has a more obvious means of reaching that property. So I would urge the board to really consider the increased traffic on these quiet roads and the safety risk that poses to the residents as it is currently set up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe Richard Lawler, I see. Stephanie, can you call him up? And Richard, I see you have to unmute yourself.
Here we go. Richard Lawler, 22 Guinevere Road.
Welcome.
Lawler. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Everybody else?
Yes.
All right. The floor is yours, Mr. Lawler.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Ann Grant just spoke to, including the concern about the pass-through from Quanticate. There's no doubt to me that an extension of the road to include this Lot B will change the characteristics of the neighborhood. In addition, it may well change the nature of the traffic. And I don't know if the board takes field trips, but it would be very helpful for your understanding if you would visit the property and see for yourselves two things, primarily whether the lot, and we're talking about lot B specifically, is in keeping with the characteristic of our neighborhood. And also the type of vehicles that may be traveling our quiet roadways. I'm not talking about the quality of the house, but rather the purpose and condition of the property. As you saw from or you can see from the plot plan, includes 5 outbuildings left over from the defunct factory. The lot may technically fall within the definition of residential, but certainly looks like an industrial area. It's strewn with all kinds of stuff. Ann pointed out the purple bus, pieces of old equipment, piles of construction material. None of this is in keeping with the characteristics of Guinevere Road. Ann also pointed out the fact that it's not the town's responsibility, that the lot A is landlocked, and the board or the town is under some obligation to free it up so that the investor in that property who made the investment knowing it was landlocked needs some type of approval so we can capitalize on an investment at the expense of us property owners. There's a fourth and broader based area of concern. I'm not sure you have the pronunciation right. Is it Mr. Deshane? Peter?
Yeah.
You pointed out the kind of the fact that Guinevere Road was never accepted by the town way back 40, 50 years ago. There's a broader based concern here that seems to warrant research by the board if it hasn't done so already. And as I go on, please stop me if you've already determined to be inapplicable. It questions the origin and history of Lot A with respect to a conservation commitment that was made when the neighborhood was developed. Guinevere Road is part of a development called Camelot Estates. My wife and I are original owners, and all of us who acquired property within this development were told that our neighborhood was authorized by the town using cluster zoning. As part of that, there was land set aside as green space to be held as such in perpetuity. A section of that land runs parallel to Guinevere Road just north of the house lots on that side of the road. It was believed to include the space that somehow is now Lot A. I call your attention to the plot plan in plot 67, which is abutting and just east of Lot A. Upward, yeah, right there. That's clearly part of this committed green space. The plot plans shows the owner as a corporation, VGR Inc. It would seem it should be owned by the town of Easton, its conservation commission, a trust, or some other protective entity. Given the importance of green space and conservation areas, it seems appropriate for this board to examine the origin, the original submissions and approval for Camelot Estates. It was approved by the town for cluster zoning, and I'm sure that this space was part of that committed green space to be held aside for conservation. There's no doubt in my mind that this space included what's labeled as plot 67. And there's now a question as to whether the proposed Lot A was a carve out from the area that was committed back then to be green conservation space. Now, regardless of the findings with respect to this conservation land, my wife and I respectively request that the board deny the application and let our neighborhood retain the same characteristics and tranquility it has enjoyed since its inception 50 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. I see Kevin Cunningham has raised a hand.
Good evening. This is Kevin Cunningham at 62 King Arthur.
Good evening, Mr. Cunningham. Welcome.
How are you? Thank you very much. This is my first board meeting ever, so I appreciate it. And
Look at that.
I'm very excited to see all the homework everyone has done. going into, the item that was spoken about before. So this is kind of exciting for me, and I appreciate it. I live in the plot at the very top there. So if you want to scroll up just a little bit above Lot A. So my entire backyard would sort of be looking at this Lot A property. I just want to say that I haven't met Ann, and I haven't met Richard. I guess it's Ann Grant and Richard Lother. I could not say it any better than them. Guinevere, we drive down it often. We actually take our kids down there on their John Deeres and their bikes. What they said really nails it. It's a really quiet neighborhood. So not only would Lot A put a house right next to my back deck, but it also really increased, I think, what happens on Lot B. Again, I think it was Richard Lother that said that looks a little more like an industrial area than it does, a residential. So I'm not going to talk for a long time. I just want to say that I also do oppose this being directly impacted by the work on Lot A and the driveway going to Lot B.
Thank you. I have one question. Have you ever used the 10-foot equine easement on your property?
I actually haven't not used it.
Nice.
No, we use it. My kids use it, and everyone on King Arthur and Guinevere. There's not a day that goes by that people don't use it. Every single day, everyone walks their dogs, and I know dogs aren't horses, but
Anybody ever on a horse?
I've seen one horse. I literally have seen one horse in the last 9 years, and
I'd love to know the origin of that. That's fascinating to me.
I think
A little before my time, but all right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Sure. Okay. Any other? All right. I see Chris Carey. Excuse me.
Hi, Christopher Carey, 54 King Arthur Road. I live next to Kevin Cunningham, and I would be in a butter on Lot A. Mike, I have a question about the equine easement. When I bought my property some 7 years ago, I was told, and let me know if I'm wrong, that we were not to infringe or, build on that property, the 10 feet. And, say that.
Not allowed passage.
Oh, we're not allowed passage across that easement. Looking on this plot, it looks like there's an equine and walking easement that goes across the top of Guinevere cul-de-sac. If I'm right that you can't break that, how could he get 2 driveways through there is my question.
Well, the plan says turning easement, which.
Well, no, if you look at the top of the cul-de-sac next to 43, it says existing 10-foot pedestrian and equine easement.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It runs all the way down to the end of the property.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can't infringe on an equine easement or pedestrian easement on our property, how would they be able to do it there?
So, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
that's an interesting question, because as part of the cul-de-sac, you see the stub. And usually the purpose of that stub is to allow access in the future to abutting property. So that's an interesting question.
Yeah, there's an answer to it, Mr. Chairman. The subdivision plan from August of 1970 that created Camelot Estates, it does in fact show that 10-foot pedestrian and equine easement all the way around, but it is broken by that very stub that Stephanie just spoke of. So it's hard.
There's also a rock wall there.
Right, great. It's hard to see, exactly on my plan, but the easement comes down to the left-hand lot line of number 43. It stops at the little stub of Guinevere Road, and then it picks up on the lower side of Guinevere Road and continues it. So the Guinevere Road roadway layout kind of stops that equestrian easement. So again, with the road being owned by the town, you would continue along the easement, hit the roadway layout, cross Guinevere Road, and get on the lower side of that equine and pedestrian easement. And continue all the way.
So, yeah, so that, well, I mean, I guess I wasn't here 50 years ago when it was, but I would think, you know, obviously you can't build a structure over an easement because then it doesn't allow passage. But I could see where a road could, like, go, Stephanie, if you could pan up a little bit.
Yep.
And Scott, you just, did Holmgren do the original subdivision plan?
No, it was done by Haywood, Boynton, and Williams, but again,
But you have it.
right, yeah,
So
exactly.
if you could, I would
Right
request
now.
that you send a copy of that to the department because,
That doesn't help, but that's what it is, Mr. Chairman. I'll certainly email it over to your department tomorrow, but
okay, great.
the original question as to whether the plot 33A, or as we're calling it, Lot A, was part of the green space. It clearly wasn't. On the subdivision plan, it was owned, in fact, by a Walter Swanson, who has nothing to do with the development at all. So it clearly was plot 33A, what we're calling Lot A, was never included in the Camelot Estates. But I'll send that over first thing.
Well, because it strikes me that, so this, right in this picture, you can see plot 67, the VGR Inc.
Yep.
That's how it goes. So both of these equine easements, north and south, dead end at this. So, right, and if you look at this subdivision, all of the pods have, well, you know, green space in between. So it's curious, you know, what is VGR? And, you know, why, to someone's earlier point, and forgive me, I don't recall who brought it up, why hasn't that gone to the town? You know, I'm not talking about Lot A, but just the plot 67.
I may be able to clarify that Aaron Waluka. VGR Inc. is a corporation that was created by the late Jimmy Antosca. He did the original subdivision. He was supposed to have deeded that parcel, that 2.8 acre parcel that is behind the homes on King Arthur and on Guinevere, to the town, but that never did happen. He felt that at some point he'd be able to develop it. He's actually the one who appealed the decision, and part of the appeal was actually dealing with the easement of Guinevere, but that I'm adding two driveways that we were making that easement.
Okay, Aaron, we've lost you. Okay, Aaron, you're broken up, but we got the gist of what you said, but the last 30 seconds wasn't audible, so.
I think that answer, Mr. Chairman, explains why the pedestrian equine easement is broken by the VGR piece. The subdivision plan does call it green area for park and recreation. So essentially you could have rode your horse all around that VGR Inc. property and then got back on the equine easement.
Exactly. That 2.8 acres is supposed to be part of the green space.
Where would we find the decision for the original subdivision?
I will.
Oh, yeah, the registry.
We will, yes, we should be able to find that. We can look for that.
And what about, I guess maybe for Scott, a question is, where does the actual Guinevere Road easement end? Does it extend all the way to the property line or not?
It does, as Stephanie said, it has the circle, but then the stub extends beyond the circle to the property line. So it does show it that way.
All right, and does that VGR, who owns the road now? Did the town ever accept the road, or it was mentioned that the town did not accept the road?
I don't know that to be the case. I am certain the town accepted the road, and you can see it's labeled as a 40-foot public.
Yeah, the town did accept one of it.
Okay, maybe it was other roads in that area. Yes. All right.
Okay, any more? Oh, a hand just went up.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, John Livingstone.
Hi, thank you. My name is John Paul Livingstone. I'm 31 Guinevere Road, so I'm right down the street from this. And, you know, this is very concerning. We just found out about this on Friday. I'm not familiar with the current homeowner. Oh, John Paul Livingstone. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the current homeowner, but August of 2020, a house actually drove by my house. So at the end of Guinevere, there's a rock structure, and off this property, they actually removed the rock structure to get this 40-foot long house off of this property. The truck actually had to back it down Guinevere and all the, I don't even know how it got onto King Arthur. But from the standpoint of not knowing what's on this property, not knowing what it's being used for, is it used for businesses, they're used, I mean, they had a house already on this structure, they removed it. I'm not even sure if that was where the new structure is gonna go, but it's just very alarming to me, some of the things that are being plotted out here, because not only from the standpoint of, we don't know what this current homeowner is gonna do at the end of the day, but also for the future. Like if you did do a road all the way through Guinevere to Quanticate, who's to say another homeowner won't move in and do something that won't be approved by the board. So I'm a very concerned resident right now with what is going on here. So thank you for your comment. Thanks for letting me say something.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? So I can move this along. So this is a preliminary, okay, I'm gonna take, this will be the last one. I see Sophia, and forgive me, Sophia, I'm not gonna attempt your last name, it's a weakness of mine, but I'm gonna close the public input after this. So this is just a preliminary meeting to begin with, and we seem to be getting all sort of parallel in agreement discussions. So go ahead, but this will be the last voice from the public this evening.
So Sophia Sarafoglu, 34.
Hi, welcome. Forgive me.
That's okay, I forgive you, it happens all the time. I'm not going to restate what everyone else has said. Sitting here thinking while listening to all the comments, one of the concerns mentioned was that it's confusing in terms of the house numbers. You've got 43 and across the street 42. What would you do for two new homes that would not make it confusing in terms of house numbers? Is just my comment in terms of the fire department. And you've got this really long driveway to the new lot, which is really no different than the existing driveway coming off of Quanticate.
Mm-hmm.
So basically that's it, my comment. You've got 43 and then across the street 42. So what would those new houses have for numbers that would not be confusing?
Right, no, I see, yeah, it's a good point. I understand what you're saying, sure. Okay, that's all?
Greg, may I address that real quick?
Sure.
Just very quickly. The answer is it would be 44 Guinevere would be the southern property, and 45 Guinevere would be the northern property. It lines perfectly up with being very easily identifiable because it is at the end of a cul-de-sac and the numbers already end, but there are more numbers above those that could be had that are not already on the street.
Okay, great. All right, so as I said, I'm gonna close out the public comment portion. We've taken this pretty far up the road, and this is just a preliminary meeting to begin with. And I'm going to suggest that we either, I want to table this for tonight. I personally want to take a site visit out there. We can do it as a group, or we can do it individually. I know everyone's busy. Because I am troubled with this, with the existing property keeping, I don't see the need for driveways onto two streets, because frankly, I think that counters the whole safety issue that we opened up with. I think it can lead to confusion, and it can lead to some issues brought up by the abutters. So that is a concern of mine. I think it's outside a little bit of the intentions of the subdivision bylaw. So is anybody up for a site visit, or you want to just buzz by at your end? It's public road, you can park and get out and look. And we can pick this up at the next meeting.
Yeah, let's try to line something up offline about the time.
Okay.
A site visit might be easier. That way I can point out the lot lines and where this actually comes off the public way and onto the property.
Sure. So why don't we, we got a pretty full agenda here. So why don't we take Peter's suggestion. We'll figure it out all online, and we'll get back to you and try to set something up. Sound good?
Thank you.
Okay, and so members of the public, just so you know how this goes, our next meeting is in 2 weeks. Best bet would be to check the agenda, which will go out typically the Wednesday or Thursday before we meet on Mondays, to see if we'll be discussing this at the next meeting.
So,
Go ahead, Stephanie.
so Greg, this didn't make it to the agenda, and we're going to discuss it tonight, and Suzanne, jump in. I think the next meeting is on the schedule for the 4th of
Correct.
October, and then you have a meeting on the 18th.
Correct.
So just a week away.
Oh, okay, so, yeah, so we should probably bump this out to the 18th.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask the board, we don't have anything right now. We don't have to discuss, we can wait till just before 8 Lincoln Street, but whether the board even should have a meeting on the 4th, because.
No, if we have nothing to discuss, we don't, as much as I enjoy seeing all you guys, I'm sure, and I know it's reciprocal, but anyways, we'll catch that at the end, just like you say.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, we don't need to take a motion to continue, this is just a preliminary, we don't need to make a
Right.
vote to continue or anything. And so just the audience, we appreciate you participating, and just double check the agenda, but like I say, looks like we'll have this on the 18th. It won't be before that, but we'll discuss this next on October 18th. And we thank everybody for their time.
Thank you, folks.
All right. All right, I have so many screens open here. Let me find my agenda.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mr. Waluka. Thank you. All right, 31. But next up, 27 Eastman Street. This is for the gun shop.
And if the people who are here for that could raise their hands, so we know who to promote. Okay.
I see Nicholas Felix.
Oh, yeah, hold on. I may. Okay, I'm going to have to hold on a minute because we have folks from the previous meeting jumping off, and every time they do, it changes my screen, and then I inadvertently promote the wrong people.
No problem. Anybody have any good jokes?
Yeah, and if, okay, so if anyone who is here, I saw a hand, I thought I was promoting it, but they've moved on. So if you could raise your hand again, if you're representing 27 Eastman Street. I do not see anyone raising their hand.
No, I think Nicholas Felix is one.
Right, but I think I may have lost.
No, he's a panelist now.
Oh, good,
He
okay,
just muted both ways.
yeah.
So Mr. Felix, if you could,
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Is there anyone else with your team, or is it just you?
There's me and my business partners here with me as well.
Okay. No, I mean, is
You're as
it
well,
a different
Mr.
name that we need to call up?
No.
No, okay, gotcha. All right, well, the floor is yours, so if you just, identify yourself and address for the record, and have at it.
You want me to start, Nick?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Farrier from Holmgren Engineering, 1024 Pearl Street, Brockton, Mass. And what we have before you is a proposal from Shoveltown Guns to use a small portion of the existing building at 27 Eastman Street, portion of the second floor as their new retail store. They're looking to use 650 square feet.
You should actually get a legal notice.
As you folks know, it's an existing property, 40,000 square feet. They have 30 parking spaces existing. According to your zoning, we only need 8 spaces total for the entire building. So we have quite a bit of extra parking, and really we're just here because if it's a change of use, Mr. Chairman. There's no building changes to the exterior, no site changes, no driveways, parking, or traffic pattern changes are proposed at all. It's just the conversion of a portion of the second floor to be used by Shoveltown Guns.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, do you have anything?
Pretty much that's it. That is why they're here. They have sufficient parking. I think Scott may have mentioned this, that the total floor space of the building is around 2,097 square feet. So for retail and office spaces, you require one parking space per 100 square feet. It would be 4.1 spaces, and they have 30 spaces, 2 of which are handicap parking. The building currently complies with all setbacks, not that, I mean, if it didn't, it would be a pre-existing condition. They do have 2 stormwater catch basins on site, but because they are not proposing any new development or new impervious surface, they're not subject to stormwater management. The one comment I have is there is landscaping at the site that buffers the building and the parking area from the roadway. Other than that, the site is pretty devoid. It is devoid of any kind of landscaping or vegetation, and really is pretty much all paved and building. But again, that's a pre-existing condition, and this is a change of use.
Right, and only using a sliver of the building.
Correct.
So, okay, board members, any questions or comments for this change of use application?
And I'm sorry, Greg, I did have one
Go
other
ahead.
comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That I'm sorry, I just looked down and remembered this, that it does not appear that there is an elevator. The floor plans do not show an elevator to the second floor. So it appears that the only access is by way of a staircase. Again, there are no, I don't think there are improvements that trigger the need for handicapped access, but maybe the applicant can just talk about that and how they would accommodate people who had a disability and could not climb the stairs.
Either of you gentlemen care to respond?
You're both muted.
Scott, you need to plug in again. or just, no, unmute actually, yeah, just unmute.
Just need to stop my beagle from barking, sorry.
No, you were the guilty party.
Go ahead, Nicholas.
Currently, we do not have any provision in place regarding the lack of there being an elevator there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say, I mean, this is site plan review, and we certainly enjoy, that would be if there was any violation, that would be a building code issue. We don't really, get involved inside the building. And I'm sure, with technology, there's, someone could call in and you could figure out ways that way. But I just think that's a bit out of our purview. So, but anyways, that's what I have to say to that. Anybody, board members, any questions or comments?
I have a question. Where are you currently operating from? Or this is a new business?
This would be a new business. The site plan approval is one of the many steps in regards to opening the business. It's heavily regulated by the state as well as the ATF on the federal level. Once we get site plan approval, if we are granted site plan approval, we would still have to work closely with the ATF and the state to get full licensing. There's a bunch of processes that go on in the background as far as the vetting that is needed to allow us to open up said shop.
So, if there's no more anyone in the audience, any questions or comments? No? So, if anybody wants to make a motion, there's no more comments.
What's the current use, of the building and the other areas of that building? Where are the other businesses there?
It's office space,
Right.
and that's how, Scott, do you know exactly what kind of office operates there?
I believe it is a believe they refer to themselves as a telecommunications company.
That is correct, yes. And they are the business on the first floor, the telecommunication company that you're speaking of. They're actually, the owner of that company is the property manager, and they are fully aware of our intended use, as is the owner of the property as well.
Yeah, I figured. Wait, and the lighting is sufficient for safety, or, just regular, in a car in and out safety, that is?
Yep.
So, just to piggyback on that, so the change of use is going from a business to mercantile, which are both allowed in that district?
Yes.
Yes.
I will assume that you need to comply with regulation related to safety because of the nature of this business.
Yes, that is correct, and that's part of that vetting process I had mentioned earlier. So in the process of us actually getting the approval from the state, before we can even get the approval from the state, the ATF goes through a site visit. They run background checks as well as do fingerprinting, and essentially they come down, they make sure that we're going to be able to comply with all both state and city laws, as well as the federal regulations, which Massachusetts is much more strict in that aspect, which we have the process open with the ATF, and this is their next step with us, is making sure we have approval from the town that we're abiding by your zoning laws, that this is an allowed use for this building. And then from there, we still need to get the green light, have the ATF come visit the site. And then from there, if they give us that approval, then we still have to go apply with the state, which goes through the local police department here in Easton.
Yeah, so with the ATF and the state, all the safety issues, right, we don't really have to worry about that so much because they.
No, and we don't really have purview inside the building, obviously.
Yeah, right, yeah, no, good.
And yeah, there's other agencies that will handle that.
All right, and, motion to, Deshane, motion to recommend, motion to approve the site plan review for 27 Eastman Street.
Yes.
This is Chris Amsonell, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Strange, aye.
Deshane, aye.
That's an aye.
Anderson, aye.
Alfaric, aye.
Edelman.
All right, that's unanimous. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Felix, how long is the process, roughly?
We'll be lucky if we're opened up by like February, to be honest.
I'm surprised it's that quick, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before we can even apply with the ATF and the state, before we can actually get final approval, we actually have to have a physical location. So we've actually been leasing this location since about April.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, folks. Good night.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next up, there's my agenda. 330 Turnpike Street. Anr Plan. And Stephanie, I will let you start whenever you are ready.
I will promote these folks to panelists, but again, this is an ANR before the board. Let me see. Is that person? Sean Berry, you are we should have everyone. This is an ANR plan. What they're doing is dividing the parcel of land along Turnpike Street that extends across the town line into West Bridgewater and also fronts United Drive in West Bridgewater into 3 lots. It will be parcel B, and then I think this one's parcel A, and the remainder lot in Easton. I'm sorry, this is parcel A.
Stephanie, is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure. Oh, sorry, I thought I was sharing mine, but yes, please do.
All right. if you guys could just identify yourself, name and address for the record, please.
Yep, sure. I'm Sean Barry from Level Design Group, 249 South Street in Plainville, Mass.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm attorney Louis Diamarino. I represent the estate of Edward Wilbur. My office location is 1037 Pleasant Street, Suite 102, Bridgewater, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Welcome. All right. Do you guys have anything you want to present? Or
Yeah, I mean, there isn't much to say other than what Stephanie already went over. Purpose of the A&R is to divide it into three lots, creating 2 new parcels, which will be in West Bridgewater, Parcel A and Parcel B. The remaining 28-acre parcel will be in Easton, Mass. And Parcel A and Parcel B are both to be considered non-buildable because they don't have frontage on United Drive. That's basically it. The remaining parcel in Easton, for the zoning district, it meets all the requirements. So.
Sure. I'm just curious. This is obviously unrelated to what we're doing, but the parcel remaining in Easton, is most of it wet? Or I mean, has it been delineated? Do you know?
So there are wetlands on the site. They weren't included for this just solely because we're looking for an A&R, but
sure.
I will say they are on site. I can't speak for, a percentage, but.
Right.
Oh, Greg, I think a significant portion of the back lot of the remaining acres is wet, as was noted.
Yeah, it's on the map. Yeah, it's right on the plan.
No, but it's not shown. They do not show how it extends onto. So if you look, you can see that there is a wetland line that actually continues.
Right. Yeah, I'm just careful.
Back onto, yeah. But
For
I
such
think
a large parcel to still exist undeveloped.
Exactly, and it certainly would be developable. There's adequate frontage along Turnpike Street.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And then, do you have to bring the A&R to West Bridgewater Planning Board too?
Yeah, so the current A&R Mylar has been presented to West Bridgewater and is currently being endorsed by the board. It's at the town hall currently.
Oh, so you went to them first. Motion to deny. All right, board, any questions, comments? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to endorse the A&R.
Second, Stetson.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, Strange, aye.
DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Bell Sarek, aye.
Great, unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice night.
You too.
All right, kids. Well, this comes that sad part of the night where I know you all hate to see me go, but I need to accuse myself. So, setting up a date for this walk. Do you want to do it right now, or do you want to do it via email?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it after this meeting.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to bow out. Right, nothing left for me, right, Stephanie?
Correct.
All right. Well, I'm heading to the wood shop. Have a wonderful night.
Stephanie, I'm also going to be recusing myself.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So I will also be stepping out of the meeting.
All right, and we'll send an email around tomorrow, scheduling the site walk, the site visit. For
all right. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. 8 Lincoln Street. I think I see Mr. Burke in the attendee list.
Okay. So if I could remind the chair, I think that one of the things you were waiting for was to hear back from the Historical Commission, and they voted to approve the project.
I saw that letter. Thank you. It's in the binder.
Yep. All right, so Mr. Burke should be joining us momentarily.
I'm here. Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, and Sam. Okay, I see Sam.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for waiting for the historical meeting and waiting for this meeting to finish up.
We still waiting for Sam?
He's unmuted now.
I'm here.
There it is.
All right, and let me know if board members, if you want me to share my screen with any of the elevations or the site plan.
I looked at it. Robert, Chris, anyone else? Do you want to see that?
Is it different from what was presented? last
No.
time? Okay.
No.
I personally gonna need to see it.
And just to, sorry, Chris.
Nope, I don't need to re-see it. I remember it from last time.
So is it just that, I forget, is like this, the new special permit just superseding the last one, so that the other affordable, whatever that other issue was that had to go?
Adding the 8 additional units.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what about the, you have to add a handicap spot for the 8 units, or I guess there was already enough because of the Y, right?
We already have existing handicaps, more than enough existing handicap spaces.
Yeah, the Y. And Stephanie, the fire department just had a couple.
Yep, and I believe, Sam, you folks have met.
Yes, I had a site walk with Captain Dazio now probably over a month ago. We went over his stuff. It is mostly going to be stuff for construction. Once we're into construction, about DBAs and different tying in the fire alarms. There was actually 2 separate fire alarms there, one for the gym and one for the main building.
Okay.
So we gotta link them.
Did they mention? They also mentioned the access around the building. They had to. Did they want changes to that, or are they fine with it?
No, he was happy. If you remember, we did submit a revised site plan that showed some expanded fire lanes that we added to the back of the building, and reestablishing some of the ones in the front. He said that he was happy with the plan.
So it's probably actually better than it was before, where some of the front ones just sort of got a little bit used up.
Just some additional striping, that's all, to sort of re-emphasize it.
All right, and are there any members of the public that would like to speak? I know there were a few last time. If you would, please raise your hand before we close this meeting. I'll close the public hearing, that is.
I do not see any raised hands.
Yeah, all right, guys, so we can do a motion to close the public hearing if the applicant would like us to, and then we can, then we go proceed with the vote.
Yes, please. Yes, we'd like to request to close the public hearing on 18th Street.
Make motion to close the public hearing for 8 Lincoln Street, special permit.
Second, Stetson.
Okay, all in favor, DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Unless you're muted.
Am I?
Okay, that passes. Next, we went in further discussion. Someone could make a motion.
So a special permit for 8 Lincoln Street.
Second, Stetson.
All in favor, DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Am I?
That's it. Sorry for the delay on that project, but thank you.
Thank the board for its time.
All right, Stephanie, we're all set with that.
We're all set. Yep.
On the agenda here? I don't think so.
Nope, that's it.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Stetson.
All in favor?
Am I?
Aye.
Aye, Stetson.
DeShane, aye. Hi, guys. Hi, Stephanie.
Night.
Hi, Sam.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everybody.
Good
Wait,
night.
do we, sorry, do we have to talk about our meeting?
Oh, we didn't talk, I think what Greg said was, oh, there are just 3 of you, but I don't think it's a majority, I think you have a majority. What I heard from Greg was, there really is nothing on the agenda. Sawmill was continued until the 4th, however, that they will not be ready on the 4th. I know that for a fact. They will be back before the Conservation Commission on the 18th, so we can post an agenda to that effect, that basically there will be no meeting on the 4th.
Yeah.
And that any meetings will get a letter from the sawmill proponent.
That's kind of a good way to do it, instead of just like canceling it, just kind of keep it open in case anything ever came up and we could, be around without having to rush around and.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right.
That's good.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Night.
Good night.